Hello everyone, I'm Janali Patel and today I'll be talking about edema, its pathogenesis and types. Edema is termed as abnormal and excessive accumulation of free fluid in interstitial tissue spaces and serous cavities. Edema is of two main types, localized and generalized. Localized is limited to an organ or a limb and generalized is systemic in distribution. Examples of localized edema are inflammatory edema, pulmonary edema and lymphatic edema, whereas generalized edema examples are edema caused due to renal diseases. Now, edema fluid can be either transudate or exudate. Transudate fluid is a fluid which is found without any vascular changes in endothelial permeability, whereas exudate is edema of inflamed tissue associated with increased vascular permeability. Transudate is a non-inflammatory edema and exudate is an inflammatory edema. Pathogenesis of edema. For knowing the abnormal mechanism of fluid exchange, we need to know the normal mechanism of fluid exchange, and for that we need to know two main terms, that is hydrostatic pressure and plasma oncotic pressure. Hydrostatic pressure is the pressure exerted by the filtrate on the walls of the vessels, and plasma oncotic pressure is the pressure exerted by the plasma proteins. At the arterial end, these pressures help the driving out movement of the fluid into the interstitial tissue spaces, whereas at the venular end, these pressure differences help in driving fluid inside the capillary vessel. This process helps in tissue fluid formation, and also helps in circulation of fluid throughout the body, and thus it helps in the process of homeostasis also. Apart from this fluid exchange, there is a part of fluid which also escapes through the lymphatics. Now, for knowing the abnormal mechanism of fluid exchange, we need to know some mechanisms which alter the normal fluid exchange. So the first one is decreased plasma oncotic pressure, the second is increased capillary hydrostatic pressure, third is lymphatic obstruction, fourth is increased capillary permeability, and the fifth one is sodium water retention. Starting off first with decreased plasma oncotic pressure, as plasma oncotic pressure decreases, there is increase in hydrostatic pressure, and thus there is more fluid moving out of the vessels and there is less inward movement of the fluid. This causes edema. It is due to hypoproteinemia, and mainly in hypoproteinemia also due to deficiency of albumin, as albumin constitutes a major part releasing oncotic pressure. Now, examples are renal disease edema, liver cirrhosis, etc. Now, next is increased capillary hydrostatic pressure. Increased capillary hydrostatic pressure at the venular end will not let the fluid drive back into the vessels, which results in minimal or no absorption at venular end, causing edema. And examples are edema of cardiac disease, that is congestive cardiac failure, cirrhosis of liver, and thrombosis of veins and tumors. Now, next is lymphatic obstruction. There is a very little fluid which escapes through lymphatic, but still obstruction of the tissue fluid through lymphatics cause localized edema or lymphoedema. And examples of these types are removal of axillary lymph nodes, that is in radial mastectomy, inflammation of lymphatic channels, or Milroy's disease or hereditary lymphedema. Increased capillary permeability is the next one. Usually we know that endothelium is selectively permeable and allows only some part of the filtrate of fluid to enter the interstitial tissues. But if there is damage of the epithelium, there are many bigger particles such as plasma proteins also leak into the interstitial fluid. So this can be due to toxin, drugs or chemicals. And this increase in plasma oncotic pressure in the interstitial space usually leads to less uptake of fluid in the vessels back, leading to edema. Examples of these edema are generalized edema, which is caused due to poisoning, certain drugs, anaphylactic reactions, anoxia, and localized edema, which is usually caused due to allergic reactions, irritant drugs, angionuretic edema, etc. Sodium water retention. This takes place through three mechanisms: intrinsic renal, extrarenal, and ADH mechanism. In intrinsic renal mechanism, there is a reduction of blood supply to kidney, which results in hypovolemia and renal ischemia, which causes decreased glomerular filtration rate, decreased excretion of sodium, and thus cause retention of sodium in the body, which causes edema. Next is extrarenal, in which there is release of aldosterone in kidney by the angiotensin II, which causes sodium water retention, thus edema. Next is ADH mechanism, in which antidiuretic hormone is released from the posterior pituitary, which causes hypovolemia in the body, which increases sodium in the body, which results in edema. Now, examples of these are congestive cardiac failure, cirrhosis of liver, and nephrotic syndrome. Next is types of edema. There are 5 types of edema. First is renal edema, cardiac edema, pulmonary edema, hepatic edema, and nutritional edema. The first one is renal edema. Renal edema is basically of 3 types: nephritic syndrome, nephrotic syndrome, and acute tubular injury. In case of nephritic syndrome, it is caused due to the excessive reabsorption of sodium and water in renal tubules due to the renin-angiotensinogen mechanism. And in this, distribution of edema is mainly in loose tissues like face, eyes, ankles, and the genitals. Next is nephrotic syndrome. Nephrotic syndrome is caused due to the decreased plasma oncotic pressure and increased sodium water retention. In this, the distribution is in subcutaneous tissue as well as visceral organs. The third one is acute tubular injury. Acute tubular injury is due to the damage of renal tubules, and thus there is impairment of absorption of nutrients, which is a cause of edema. Next is cardiac edema. Generalized edema develops in right heart side failure, and mechanisms which involved are decreased cardiac output, increased venous pressure, and increased capillary permeability. In decreased cardiac output, hypovolemia occurs, which thus activates the intrinsic and extrarenal hormonal mechanisms and ADH secretion, which leads to sodium water retention and thus edema. When increased central venous pressure occurs, there is increased capillary hydrostatic pressure, and thus transudation occurs, which causes back pressure hypothesis. Now next is increased capillary permeability. Now this occurs due to hypoxia, and thus there are injuries to the endothelium, which results in edema, and this is termed as forward pressure hypothesis. Now next is left heart failure. In this, there is particularly venous congestion which occurs, and this is usually causing pulmonary edema. This edema is gravity dependent, thus it appears in the lower extremities, and in bedridden patient it occurs in the genital and sacral areas. It also occurs in serous cavities. Next is pulmonary edema. Pulmonary edema is mainly a local edema. The special feature of this edema is the fluid accumulation is not only present in the tissue spaces but also in the alveoli. It usually results from the increased pulmonary hydrostatic pressure or increased capillary permeability, or it is caused due to acute high altitude adaptation due to damage of blood vessels. Now next is hepatic edema. It is caused due to hyperproteinemia, portal hypertension due to increased venous pressure, raised hydrostatic pressure, aldosterone inactivation failure due to liver diseases, or stimulation of sodium water retention through renin-angiotensinogen mechanism. The next one is nutritional edema. It occurs due to deficiency of proteins, vitamins, and due to chronic alcoholism. The diseases mainly due to which it is caused is kwashiorkor, beriberi, fasting, etc. Edema occurs in legs, but it is sometimes generalized also. It is caused due to hyperproteinemia and sodium water retention. This was all for today. If you like the video, please like, share and subscribe the video. Thank you so much.